And now, joining Steve Clemons for a discussion on preventing tomorrow's cyber disasters is Executive Vice President and General Manager of Security and Collaboration at Cisco, Jeetu Patel.
Thank you.
Steve, I've been with you since 7 a.m.
I know. Are you tired
of coffee,
of me?
or what's the thing that keeps your energy going?
Cisco. I'm really interested, as I said this morning, in the broad question of, are we today talking about yesterday's problems, or are we getting our head around tomorrow's issues? And as we look about, the issue that I don't think we would have been talking about as much 10 years ago, it's how we get the whole question of digital connectivity right. And I think we were all seduced, candidly, in my view, into thinking it was a safe space. But it's not. There are lots of, saboteurs in the game.
There are.
You obsess and think about all night security, and I'm interested.
All day as well.
Yeah, all day, all night. But I'm interested in what the dimensions of this equation are that we've got to, from a public policy and partnership with the private sector, do better than we're doing.
Yeah, look, the thing is the way we think about it at Cisco is there's three basic human rights that are not evenly distributed. One of them is connectivity. One of them is the right for people to be safe, and so security actually creates that. And then the third one is privacy. And these are core human rights that I think we need to be thinking about in ways that we haven't. Now, if you look at the landscape right now, if you see the world, opportunity is very unevenly distributed, but human potential really isn't. And so how can you make sure that there's connectivity in a way that anyone from any part of the world can participate in a global economy and that geography doesn't become a barrier? I think that's one of the big areas that humans have still kind of had a very traditional mindset. So if I were to say, what's the next generation leader going to look like? I think they're going to be people that know how to build deep bonds and relationships without physically being in the same room with each other. And the moment you do that, there's a massive unlock. Because then someone in a village in Bangladesh can participate in a global economy just the same way that someone is in the heart of Silicon Valley. And I think that'll be a very, very interesting thing. Now, on the security side, it's really interesting that there's about 3,500 vendors in security, because this industry evolved out of patchwork, right? There was a threat that occurred, and so there was a solution that came out for the threat. On average, most companies will have between 50 and 70 vendors that they will actually have within their infrastructure for security. This simply is untenable because the threat actors are getting more sophisticated. It used to be that there were hackers that were kind of college students. Now it's nation states, right? The attack surface has gotten much broader. So I do think that there's this need for people thinking beyond human scale for security to machine scale. And that's where it starts to get exciting with artificial intelligence, because no longer are we going to be able to go out and fend off the attacks just by going out and having humans look at it. There has to be a level of inference that has to be taken based on machines. I'll give you a simple example. With end-to-end encryption, that's been pretty kind of prominent. There's no way at this point that you can look inside of every packet traversing a network on what's actually being transported. So the only way you can detect a breach is inferring the movement of the packet and seeing whether or not there's an anomaly. And so there's some very interesting kind of dynamics on what we need to do moving forward as it pertains to security. And it will be the determining factor on whether or not the world economy will be able to do it, because it's part of the critical infrastructure. If you have a breach today, your healthcare system goes down. People can't get kidney transplants. Your water system can go down. Your power grid goes down. Warfare will start with cyber. Will be there during the duration of the war, and then towards the end of the war. And so there's a fair amount of consequence to humans. And right now, it's far too complicated for the average citizen to know how to keep themselves protected. And so I think we as a technology community have to simplify how security actually gets consumed within the marketplace.
You know, when you talk about wars, you know, the day we mark the invasion of Ukraine is February 24th. And I have been interested in the fact that the cyber attack on Ukraine started on February 23rd. Do we have, well, one, do we have the date wrong that we're marking as the date? And do we have an orientation? You know, it just basically, there's still a kind of lack of orientation, an understanding about how much society could be disrupted by significant failures in security.
Yeah, it's actually, I don't think it's fully internalized. And I don't, you know, the adage is usually that, you know, most consumers don't care about privacy because their behavior doesn't say so. And that might be true to some degree. Most consumers will care about security after they have the first breach or identity theft. And, you know, if you think about even the basics, like having two-factor authentication precipitously drops your probability of being breached. How many over here have two-factor authentication with most of our financial institutions with a show of hands? Okay, that's half.
I'm forced to.
Right? The other half don't. So I do think that we haven't fully internalized the consequence of this for the individual, for society at large, for national economies, and for the global stage and the world economy.
Does Jeetu Patel have a TikTok channel?
I have an account on TikTok.
Me too. Follow me.
But it's only because my daughter was on TikTok and she's 12 years old, and it was actually very scary. She got off of it now. She started when she was 9.
Yeah.
Stupid of me that we allowed it. She said, "Hey Dad, can I have a TikTok account?" I'm like, "No, you can't have a TikTok account." And she goes, No, I'm just gonna go out and create these videos that are not about me. She literally got 60,000 followers as a 9-year-old within a matter of 3 months. I've been trying to do this my entire life and I have 40,000. So clearly there was competence that was far greater in the offspring. But so that's why I had a TikTok account, but I don't use it that much.
Later, I'm talking to Mark Warner, Senator Mark Warner. He's a surprise guest, I'm telling you now. It's a recorded conversation I just had last night with him. It's very short, but it's essentially about TikTok without saying TikTok. It's about the Restrict Act. I just want you're in town, you live on the West Coast. I remember having a conversation with West Coast types, and the conversation was
odd people.
The conversation was about ending death. That we have the technology to eventually end death. And we had a couple of DC types who were there saying, "Oh my God, that's going to be horrible for entitlements." So you have the kind of clash of this disruptive, innovative West Coast culture with the DC regulatory world. What do you want the DC regulatory world to know most about the security arena that you're in? And how can we screw it up even more?
I'd take it a notch up, and not just security. One of the biggest movements that we are experiencing right now in tech that's going to be, in my opinion, at least as large as the internet, if not bigger, at least as large as the PC revolution and the mobile, is artificial intelligence. And if you look at the dissonance of understanding, firstly, it has to get regulated. You can't not have artificial intelligence be regulated. It'd be very scary. In order to get regulated, policymakers are going to need to really understand the nuance and the complications of how AI works. And AI will play a pretty big role in security, because security can't be operated at human scale anymore. Like I said, it's going to be largely machine scale. I think there'll need to be a fair amount of education and dialogue between public and private sector in making sure that we set the right policies that aren't too restrictive, so that, other countries overtake us and the innovation still happens. But on the other hand, we're keeping in mind the fact that there's a significant downside to AI if done wrongly, and a significant upside to humanity if done in the right way. And that'll actually depend a lot on the way the policy gets set. And that'll require a lot of education with the public sector and the private sector, kind of working together collaboratively.
Let me ask you, in the 49 seconds we have left, some of you may stumble through Davos now and then, but you don't want people to know it. But you should go by the Cisco Chalet on Promenade, and there you always have these screens that I become mesmerized by, but you can watch in real time Cisco tracking who's launching malware in the world. It's kind of scary. And as the time zones change, as the sun moves around the world, the malware sites, some of them are in the United States, but some of them are in places like Belarus and Russia. Sicily's a big one. You can kind of look around. What is stopping the nefarious players you're monitoring and watching in real time? What's stopping you from getting them shut down?
Currently, if you look at the way that the security industry has evolved, let me just briefly describe the anatomy of an attack. It starts with email, most of the time.
Super brief.
Super brief. Yeah. Starts with email, goes to the web, you actually click on a link. When you click on a link, you actually get some kind of process initiated on your endpoint, and then there's a packet that goes over the network, and now you start to have lateral movement because your computer gets infected and it moves all over. The way that we look at analytics is in each one of those individually. And what we need to have is cross-domain view of native telemetry that says, when something happens in email and something happened on the endpoint, this actually denotes that there is an attack that's happening. We as an industry haven't really gone out and taken a holistic look. That's what we need to do in this platform movement.
Well, I'm going to just say in conclusion, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to Cisco for supporting today's conversations. I thought this was important to have. My only request is next time you're here, don't come. Let's just do it on telepresence, and you should be an avatar.
I do run the WebEx business at Cisco, so you should try it out. It's a great product.
So, Jeetu Patel, Executive Vice President, Security and Collaboration, Cisco, thank you so much.